TCI is brought to you by Forestry, sire of 42 stakes winners, including 2011 Preakness winner Shackelford.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Triple Crown. I'm John Siegel alongside Joel Cunningham. All right, Joel, we're 6 weeks away from the Derby. We have the Spiral Stakes and the Sunland Derby this weekend, and it will likely be the final preps for many of these horses.
It's very exciting, John. We're in the final prep mode now. I mean, you just said it. These will be the final preps for most of these. You might get a couple also-rans from this weekend that'll come back, try their hand in maybe the Bluegrass or the Arkansas Derby, but really, this is the start of the final preps this weekend with these two races, and you have $1.3 million in graded earnings up for grabs. So a few horses are going to punch their ticket into that starting gate of the Derby. And you know, when you look at these races, you say, oh, they're just two harmless grade threes, sort of off the beaten path. Wrong. These have been very productive races. Just look at last year. Ruler on Ice coming out of the Sunland Derby, winning the Belmont Stakes, and then obviously your big one, Animal Kingdom, win the Spiral, and then parlaying that into a Kentucky Derby victory. Right. So it's important to pay attention this weekend.
Well, let's see how productive this year is going to be. Let's bring in Ed Derosa from Brisnet.com. Hey, Ed, thanks for coming back on the show. Hey, is your pocketbook a little bit lighter after Gemologist?
It's a little lighter, admittedly, but you know, when you're wrong like that, all you can say is good performance and turn the page to the next race.
All right, Ed, let's turn the page right now and let's talk about the Spiral Stakes. Obviously, everyone knows Animal Kingdom won this race last year, went on to win the Kentucky Derby. How do you see this year's Spiral Stakes sizing up?
Well, you mentioned Animal Kingdom, so I'll start with the same connections. I really like that Grand Motion's bringing Went the Day Well into this race off the maiden win. Last year he had a horse named Sanagas who really improved second off the import, and I think we saw that with Went the Day Well and his maiden win, and I expect to see another improvement this Saturday at Turfway.
Well, Ed, Joel here. Now, handicapping that poly track can be tricky. I know you're familiar with it up at Turfway. Tell our viewers an angle that can maybe help them decipher these 12 up-and-coming three-year-olds. A lot of them have not run on the poly track yet.
I find with synthetic, people overvalue the closing mentality. I think it's far more important for a horse to be able to make a big move before they enter the stretch. So for me, when I'm handicapping with the ultimate PPs, I pay real close attention to that E2 pace rating, which is from the start of the race to the second call. The other two pace ratings are more specific. They're either to the first call or to the closing fraction. But that middle pace rating really gives you a sense of if a horse can get into the race. So when I find figures above par for that rating, I definitely take a closer look at those horses on synthetic.
Well, Ed, let's talk Sunland Derby. You have 8 three-year-olds lining up in New Mexico on Sunday. You know, the first 3 horses in here, to me, are sort of second-tier horses coming in from big barns. You have Bob Baffert bringing in Castaway on the rail, as well as Stirred Up, an impressive maiden winner. And then another impressive maiden winner in South Florida, that's Ender Knievel from the Pletcher barn. How do you see this race unfolding?
I think the 3 that are represented by those 2 trainers are going to be overbet, and I do see them as falling in sort of the second tier of their horses. So I'm going to try to go with a top-tier horse, at least as far as Sunland Park is concerned with Isn't He Clever?
Well, you probably get a good price on him, the local horse there that won the prep race. What did you think about Castaway? I mean, he's probably going to be your shortest price favorite of the weekend. You know, when you look at both these 3-year-old races, he comes in off that impressive Southwest win. What did you make of him in here?
I'm just not a believer in the form we saw in the Southwest Stakes. You know, Brits has something called a race rating, and the division of the Southwest he was in just got 1 point more than his maiden race. I just don't see him being able to win this on the front end.
Hey, thanks, Ed. Thanks for coming on the show, man. We really appreciate it. I know you're going to be out at the Spiral Stakes this weekend. We hope to see you out there.
Yeah, I can't wait. It'll be my first live race since November, so looking forward to getting some spring training in before Keeneland.
That's Ed Derosa with Brisnet.com coming on the show to help you guys with some handicapping tips. Joel, how important are these races? Let me tell you, there's only 2 horses this weekend who have enough graded earnings to get into the Kentucky Derby right now. That's Castaway and Daddy Knows Best. They're number 17 and 19.
Well, they're way down the list, like you said, so they can't afford to lay an egg either. Because honestly, if they do, they probably don't belong in the Derby anyway, but they're not going to get in. They're so far down the list, they need some graded earnings. And then obviously these other horses, you have 23-year-olds running this weekend between the 2 graded races, $1.3 million up for grabs. Somebody's going to punch their ticket, and there's a lot of aspirations. A lot of horses need graded earnings.
Let's talk about the Spiral Stakes here for a minute. Obviously, Team Valor brings in another contender here with Went the Day Well. I was surprised to read Barry Irwin says Went the Day Well is further along right now than Animal Kingdom was.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that, because I do, if you rewind to last year, I know Team Valor Connections, they liked Animal Kingdom, but you know, when they were going to run him in the Spiral around this time last year, they had the other horse that they bought from Europe that they really wanted to run in the Spiral because they thought, well, he's by Giants Causeway, maybe he'll like the dirt a little more. That horse wound up running in the undercard race. Animal Kingdom wins the Spiral, luckily, and then they're not even sure if they're going to run him in the Kentucky Derby. He had to breeze well on the dirt. Right. It was kind of a game time decision, and I don't even know if they were that confident the day he won the Derby. So, you know, when I look at Went the Day Well, he's at least accomplished on the dirt already at Gulfstream Park, and that's probably why he feels that way.
Well, I know Ed likes the horse. There's other horses in here. Todd Pletcher brings in Heavy Breathing, but tell me, who do you like?
Yeah, Heavy Breathing, I think, is going to be your favorite in here, John. He's by Giants Causeway, too. Should like the synthetic surface, but I just think it's a wide open group of up-and-coming 12 3-year-olds in here. I mean, there are no graded stakes winners in the entire field. So I like the horse that ran second in the prep last time out, and that's Ill Conceived. He was second in the Battaglia. This horse is going to want to go further. You look at him, he's a big barrel of a horse. He's a huge horse, and he's a grinder. He has no real move into him, but I think he's getting better. And that extra eighth of a mile, he's going to love it. I think he'll be right there at the end.
All right, let's move now to the Sunland Derby, Joel, where we see $800,000 up for grabs. Bob Baffert brings in two, including Castaway, the winner of the Southwest Stakes.
Yeah, Castaway is going to take all the beating in here, John. This is where the race starts, in my opinion. He draws from the rail. You know, I was really impressed with the Southwest. I know Ed didn't like it so much because the speed ratings didn't come back as strongly from his maiden win to the Southwest win. But if you can recall, this horse laid down coming out of the paddock at Oaklawn Park. It's a very strange set of events. Laid down, you know, flipped over, whatever he did there, and they had to check him out. Well, they load him in the gate. He breaks from the far outside, which is almost impossible to do in a short stretch mile race at Oaklawn. He wins like a wild horse. I mean, he was really finishing down the lane, galloped out great. I just think that he is progressing. You know, these street senses, they're getting better with age and distance. So there's no reason for me to believe that here going another eighth of a mile, he's just not going to continue to get better. I expect a big performance from Castaway, and I think he's the horse to catch.
Well, I'll tell you what, I like Ed's pick in here, but I see Ender Knievel coming in for Todd Pletcher. He draws to the immediate outside of Castaway. Joel, he's shown brilliance as well.
Well, Ed's taking a good handicap in Eagle. Isn't he clever? The local horse is going to get a good stocking trip behind the speed, which could develop between Castaway and Ender Knievel. I mean, you want to talk about interesting jockey strategies. Watch the first turn of this race, because you have Castaway drawing the rail with Bejarano, Ender Knievel right outside of him with Velasquez. Both have a lot of natural speed. I think both jockeys are going to employ a lot of strategy going into the first turn. The difference is, I think Castaway, if he has to, can lay off of it and come around, and I just think he's the best horse.
All right, Joel, thank you so much. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back on Monday. We'll see who takes home the graded earnings.